Hey everyone, it's Lars here, and welcome back to Virtual Paddock. Today, I'm gonna have a look at this year's Assetto Corsa mod Christmas surprise. And that is the ARC TA2 pack by Virtual Racing Cars. And with this pack, VRC are bringing us two of the cars currently competing in the TA2 class of the Trans Am series. The Chevy Camaro and the Ford Mustang. Obviously with the names changed. The Camaro is called the Chevrette Gen6 and the Mustang is called the Mare. And once again, VRC have nailed the visuals, as well as the sounds. Listen to that growl. Now, on the technical side, both of these are actually silhouette cars. So it's a tubular frame chassis with the Camaro or Mustang body on top. And the source of the power can only be one thing: a big V8. Producing around 500 horsepower, and that goes through a 4-speed manual gearbox to the rear axle. No traction control, no anti-lock brakes. And aside from the rear wing, not a lot of error either. Sounds like it's gonna be pretty damn fun. Let's try it out. Alright, so starting with the Chevrette, the Camaro, at Road Atlanta. I'm on pretty much the baseline setup, except that I went for a longer final drive, but just by one click. Otherwise I'd be hitting the rev limiter on the back straight. And even with this setting, I do get pretty close. Now you might notice that I don't actually have to use the clutch to shift. I just slightly over rev. But I only need to use the clutch to pull away from standstill. But obviously I do have to lift and blip manually. Nice big sideways moment. That was actually quite easy to catch. And generally, this is not a super hard car to drive. So it generally does what you want it to do. I gotta say, I do need to get used to it more. And generally, I gotta admit that before this mod was released, I didn't really know anything about Trans Am. I mean, I knew that existed, but I didn't really know anything about the types of cars. but I could very much see this, and obviously also the Mustang, becoming a car that through sim racing might introduce me to a new series to watch. I'm definitely enjoying how it feels to drive. And to be honest, it might be an odd way to describe it, but I think you could say it's like somewhere between NASCAR and GT. What I mean by that is it's got the kind of raw feel of NASCAR, like manual gearbox, nice roaring V8. But unlike a NASCAR, this is much better on brakes and the corners. When you see this, you kind of at first expected that it really doesn't want to turn in, but it actually does. It actually wants to oversteer on turn in typically. So you need to be quite careful when you turn in. But apart from that, it generally does what you want. Right, so that was the Camaro. And now let's see what the Mustang's gonna be like. Alright, so now for the Mustang. Or the Mare, as VRC are calling it. Once again, baseline setup. Though for this one I also left the final drive as it is. Since the straights aren't long enough to hit the rev limiter in 4th gear. Whoa. By the way, the reason I decided to go to Adelaide for this one is because there's also an Australian Trans Am series. They also have this class of cars. So through these slow corners, it's definitely not as oversteery on turn-in. Now, obviously, I know I'm driving a different car, but I have driven them both at both circuits. And I honestly haven't noticed any significant differences. They're extremely similar. I think that's because these aren't actual Ford Mustangs and Chevy Camaros. It's a specific tubular frame chassis, as I mentioned, and just with a Mustang or Camaro, or in the actual Trans Am TA2 class, there's also, I think, 2 Dodge Challengers. It's always just with a specific body on top. But the benefit of the whole thing is that these cars are, by motorsport standards, they're extremely cheap. I think what I read is that one of these cars, a complete car, costs like $100,000. And that's around the same to run for a season. And for a race car like this, by most sports standards, that's a bargain. And they feel awesome to drive. Some nice rotation through the hairpin. Also here. So Mustang also feels awesome to drive. Extremely similar to the Camaro, as I mentioned. I really gotta do a side-by-side comparison to see if there are any big significant differences. I mean, the benefit of that is that it'll definitely make for some close racing.
So, as I've already mentioned, both of these feel, at the very least, extremely similar to drive. But that's because under the body, it's basically the same car. I don't know if they're also gonna make the Dodge Challenger, but even with just the Camaro and the Mustang, you can definitely already have a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you want to see more content like this, be sure to click like and subscribe. So, till next time, use the downforce, and see you soon.